Hey guys, tonight we step barefoot into the desert, where the sand is cool and the wind hums softly against the ancient limestone blocks. You stand beneath the shadow of the Great Pyramid, its immense presence looming above like a frozen wave of stone. The moonlight dances across its faces, lighting up angles so sharp they seem unnatural, almost intentional. You hear a whisper, not from a person, but from the rock itself, as if the pyramid is trying to say something. Numbers float into your mind like echoes from another age. There's something here, something precise, something hidden in plain sight. You probably won't survive this if you're allergic to matter mystery. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. That's half the fun, right? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not supposed to be here. It's well past visiting hours, and yet here you are, slipping between the chain-link barriers, your phone dimmed to night mode. The sand shifts quietly beneath your sneakers as you creep toward the base of the Great Pyramid. Everyone always wants to climb it, but you're listening to it. That's when you notice the old man leaning against the outer casing stones. He looks like he belongs here, not just in Egypt, but here, on this exact rock, like he's been waiting for millennia. His voice is low, and almost without turning, he says, "You know about the number, don't you?" You freeze. Do you? Your eyes travel up the towering wall of ancient stone. You don't see graffiti. You don't see hieroglyphs. But something in your gut tells you the math is speaking. A frequency. A formula. A story that isn't written in ink, but in ratios and angles. You reach out, placing your hand on the warm limestone. It's smoother than you expected, as though it's been sanded down by time or design. The guide continues, as if narrating your thoughts. They say the number is in every pyramid. Not just here, not just in Egypt, but everywhere. It's older than the pharaohs, older than the Nile. You glance back at him, but now he's further away. The sand around you shifts, not physically, but in time. For a moment, you're not in 2025. You're in something much older, before calendars, before clocks. You blink, and the stars overhead seem closer, sharper, as though the air itself has been tuned. The pyramid isn't just a monument, it's an equation. Height to base, slope to perimeter. Every line hums a value. And as you start whispering numbers to yourself, 230.4 meters, 146.6 meters, you feel them aligning in your chest. Here's the mainstream history bit. The Great Pyramid of Giza is commonly believed to have been constructed around 2560 BCE for Pharaoh Khufu. It was the tallest man-made structure in the world for over 3,800 years. Standard stuff. Textbook facts. But what they don't put in the textbook, that its dimensions seem to encode planetary data like the Earth's circumference, the golden ratio, and yes, a very particular number that keeps showing up. Not a random number. A musical tuning, an ancient frequency, a curious coincidence across cultures. Your pulse quickens not out of fear, but recognition. The same number that musicians say harmonizes with nature. The same number embedded in Vedic texts. The same number whispered in every conspiracy rabbit hole you've ever side-eyed at 3 a.m. And suddenly, you're not just standing at a pile of stones. You're standing at the base of a machine. An information vault. A calculator that predates the calculator. A breeze picks up, dry and steady, and the pyramid exhales something ancient into your lungs. Dust, maybe, or data. Historians still argue whether these numbers were intentional, whether the ancient Egyptians really knew this math, or if modern minds are just over-interpreting. Some call it coincidence. Others call it revelation. You're starting to feel it might be neither. Or maybe both. You sit, right there in the sand. You let your back rest against the bottom course of stone and tilt your head upward. Above you, 2.3 million blocks stack like a silent staircase toward the heavens. The stars blink overhead, as if acknowledging your arrival. And then you hear it again. That whisper. Not from the guides gone now, maybe never there. From the stone itself. The number is here, but not written. Encoded. Waiting. And the moment you close your eyes, the pyramid stops being a structure and becomes a story. The sand feels cooler now beneath your fingertips, as though the heat of the day has fled into the past. You run your hand along the slope of the pyramid's base, tracing the angle with your palm. It's steep, but not overwhelming, like it wants to invite you up, not warn you away. You start to notice things. The face of the pyramid is angled at exactly 51.84 degrees. Not 51, not 52, not a lazy estimation. 51.84. It's too clean to ignore, too precise to be arbitrary. Your eyes scan the line upward again, and for a second, you think the stones are glowing faintly. Then you realize it's the moonlight catching each edge, refracting with unnatural consistency. It's as though the entire thing was carved from a blueprint drawn in the stars. You stand up slowly and walk around one corner, kicking up grains of sand as you go. The pyramid stays still, of course, but there's a tension in the air, like it's watching or waiting. You reach the north face and stand directly in front of it, perfectly centered, and for the first time, you feel small in the way the builders must have intended. You start counting the stones vertically. 1, 2, 3. Your breath slows as the pattern begins to form. Here comes your historical anchor. Scholars have long documented that the original height of the Great Pyramid was approximately 146.6 meters, or 280 Egyptian royal cubits, and the base length is around 230.4 meters. When you double the base length and divide it by the height, you get something suspiciously close to pi, as in 3.14, as in what the ancient Greeks would discover thousands of years later. But the Egyptians? They weren't supposed to know that. And here's where the fringe takes over. You pull out your phone, not to take a photo but to do math. Because yes, that's what you're doing now in the middle of the Egyptian desert at night. Your friends would think you've lost it. You think maybe you found it. Perimeter of base is equal to 4 times 230.4 equals 921.6 meters. Height equal 146.6 meters. 921.6 divided by 146.6 is equal to 6.2857. Now multiply that result by 2, and what do you get? 12.5714. You tilt your head. You try again. You go deeper. What if the pyramid isn't referencing just pi, but another ratio altogether? Maybe one related to the Earth's diameter or the frequency of a musical note. Maybe this isn't just geometry, it's harmonics. Because here's the thing. Some theorists believe that 51.84 degrees isn't just an angle. It's a harmonic expression of energy. That number shows up in radio frequency engineering and planetary physics. And according to one overly enthusiastic German man you once watched on YouTube, in the layout of your own DNA. Historians still argue whether the ancient Egyptians had this level of knowledge, or whether it's modern projections onto old stones. But as you run the numbers again, a small part of your brain starts to wonder, what if they weren't primitive? What if they were precise? A gentle wind stirs behind you. You turn quickly, too quickly, and for a heartbeat, You see the silhouette of a person vanishing around the next corner. Your heart races. You're not alone, but no footsteps follow. Instead, you notice a slight indentation in the sand. A triangle. No, not just a triangular spiral. As though someone had been drawing with a stick, tracing a golden ratio into the dust. You follow it. It leads you back to the face of the pyramid, where something else catches your eye. The casing stones are mostly gone now, stripped away centuries ago. But here and there, they remain polished, white, impossibly smooth. You place your hand on one. It feels warm. Not from the sun, from inside. Then you hear it again. Not a whisper this time. A tone. A low, steady hum that seems to vibrate inside your chest. You don't know if it's coming from the pyramid or from you, but it's there. A resonance. And that number you couldn't stop thinking about, 432, it starts to loop in your mind like a mantra. You remember reading something about how the Earth's axis precesses 1 degree every 72 years, and that 72 multiplied by 6 equals 432. You remember someone once said 432 is the number of gods in Norse mythology. That Tibetan monks chant in rhythms built around 432 beats. That Mozart supposedly tuned his instruments to 432 hertz. Coincidences, right? You look back up the pyramid. You imagine someone, thousands of years ago, standing exactly where you are, carving stone, laying blocks, humming that same low tone. Were they just building a tune? Or were they tuning the earth? You step back from the wall, half expecting it to breathe. The hum fades like it knew you were listening and decided that was enough for now. You sit cross-legged in the sand, pull your hoodie tighter, and open your notes app. Not to journal some profound realization, but because you're trying to divide a pyramid's perimeter by its height again. You're obsessed now. Let's face it, you're knee-deep in sacred geometry, and there's no exit ramp. Okay, so what happens when you take the base perimeter 921.6 meters and divide it by twice the height of the pyramid, roughly 146.6 times 2, is equal to 293.2 meters. 921.6 divided by 293.2 is equal to 3.1428. That's right. Pi. You let the number sit for a second. It stares back at you. Quiet, smug, round. Historians still argue whether this was intentional or just a happy accident. Ancient Egyptian mathematicians, after all, had different ways of approximating areas and circles. But this seems a little too tidy. A little too on the nose. You remember the old classroom trick: divide the circumference of a circle by its diameter and get pi. Except here you are, thousands of years back in time, and someone beat Euclid to it by stacking rocks in the desert. But then again, it's not just pi, is it? It's always almost pi. Never exactly 3.14159. Just close. Teasingly close. As if the pyramid's whispering, "You're on the right track, but I'm not giving you everything." You glance around the plateau. Somewhere in the distance, a faint camel grumbles like a disapproving math teacher. You mutter, yeah, under your breath and keep scrolling. Then a thought strikes you. What if it's not just about pi? What if it's about what's missing? You squint at the pyramid's summit. It's flat. Too flat. That's because the capstone is gone. Stolen? Never installed? Dropped in a cosmic shipping accident? Some accounts claim it was made of gold. Others say it was quartz. A few wild theories argue it wasn't a stone at a lit, was a frequency generator. And here's where things get weird. You pull up an old article from that forum you pretend not to read. It claimed the capstone held the final numerical constant needed to complete the pyramid's message. Without it, it's like watching a movie that cuts off 5 minutes before the ending. Frustrating. Intentional. You wonder, what would the full pyramid measure with the capstone? You guesstimate it adds about 1 meter. So now your height becomes 147.6 meters. You do the math again. 921.6 divided by 147.6 is equal to 6.242. That's not pi. Not golden ratio. Not anything really. Or is it? You try squaring it, cubing it, adding digits of your birthday. Okay, now you're just procrastinating. But then it hits you. The numbers keep returning to the same central themes: resonance, balance, and frequency. You dig deeper. Ancient structures across the world seem to echo similar numbers. The angle of the Great Pyramid, 51.84 degrees, is almost identical to the angles found in sacred mounds in Ohio, Mexican pyramids, and even some Buddhist stupas. And guess what? Many of them encode harmonic numbers, multiples, or fractions of frequencies in music. That's where 432 starts haunting you again. Musicians today argue about tuning standards. Most of the Western world uses 440 Hz as the concert pitch. But 432 Hz? That's the cosmic pitch, according to New Age theorists. They say it aligns with natural resonances of the planet, of your body, of your very cells. Somehow the pyramid seems to know this. You hum softly, a simple note, then lower it, closer to 432 Hz. Of course, you don't have a tuning fork or perfect pitch, but something in your chest loosens when you get close. Your bones almost vibrate. That's when the quirky fact kicks in. Some ancient Egyptian tombs were built with materials that amplify resonance. One chamber in the Great Pyramid, the King's Chamber, is made entirely of granite, which is piezoelectric. That means it responds to pressure with electricity. So now the theory gets juicier. What if the pyramid was designed to vibrate? What if the missing capstone wasn't decorative, it was a resonator? You lean back, staring up at that flat peak. It's mocking you now. Empty, silent, full of potential. Historians still argue whether the capstone ever existed. Some say it's metaphorical. Others believe it was removed to prevent activation. You chuckle softly. Activation. You imagine a global security council panicking at the idea of a reassembled pyramid starting to vibrate back into life. What would it do? Hum the universe into alignment? Zap all your crypto passwords into the cloud? No one knows. You hum again. 432. It feels familiar now, like something ancient, not learned but remembered. And as you let the sound fade into the night air, you swear the pyramid exhales. The night air wraps around you now like a woven blanket, dry, electric, and oddly comforting. You're no longer sure how long you've been out here, or even what time it is. The stars above are crystal clear, and the pyramid seems quieter, as if it's testing whether you're really paying attention. You rise slowly, brushing sand from your legs, and glance toward the summit again. That flat, absent peak. The missing capstone. Funny how a single absent stone changes everything. You recall a strange theory you read once, buried in the comments section of an obscure video classic rabbit hole stuff. It said that ancient structures around the world are all whispering the same number. And that number isn't pi or phi. It's 432. You hesitate. You've heard this number mentioned in music, spirituality, even weather patterns. But now it's different. It's everywhere. You walk around the pyramid again, slower this time, tracing its shape in your mind. 4 triangular faces meeting at an imaginary point. But now you see each angle as a vector, each face as a directional antenna. And the number comes back, 432. You pause. Is this just numerology gone wild? Or is there a pattern? Here's your mainstream history moment. The ancient Sumerians used a number system based on 60. And in one of their most famous texts, the Sumerian king lists there's mention of a reign lasting 432,000 years. Sure, It sounds mythical, exaggerated. But your gut whispers, what if it's encoded? Then you remember this. There are 86,400 seconds in a day. Divide that by 2 is equal to 43,200. A half-day cycle. The Earth spins 360 degrees in 24 hours, which breaks down to 15 degrees per hour. Do enough math, and somehow 432 keeps showing up. Too much? Maybe. But you're past the point of casual interest now. You're not learning this. You're remembering it. You reach the east face of the pyramid and spot something unusual. A stone slightly darker than the rest, still bearing faint chisel marks. It's not unique, but it's deliberate. You kneel and run your hand along the line. And then it hits you, this isn't the only place you've seen that number. Back home, your favorite meditation track? Tuned to 432 Hz. The temple bells in Bali? Tuned by artisans who never studied math. The oldest sitars in India? Their sympathetic strings resonate best at guess what 432. You don't want to over-romanticize it. Numbers can be slippery, but it's starting to feel less like math and more like music. Because 432 isn't just a number, it's a frequency, a vibration, a tone, a tuning fork for the universe, perhaps. You think back to an old conversation you overheard in a museum once. Two archaeologists debating whether the pyramid was a tomb or a machine. One said, "It was a monument to death." The other replied, "No, it was a tool for life." That stuck with you. Because what if the pyramid was never meant to house the dead but to elevate the living? You trace the base one more time, counting your steps. And then you hear music. Faint, distant, like a single flute played underwater. You freeze. No one else is around. Your phone is silent. The wind is still. The sound grows louder but not in volume. In presence, it wraps around you like a fog, soft and circular. You close your eyes, and you see it. Not the pyramid, but the pattern. From the base, numbers spiral outward. 3691242. You see temples echoing this number in Cambodia, Mexico, and Turkey. Even structures built thousands of years apart seem to share a rhythmic language, one not written, but felt. You remember Nikola Tesla once said, "If you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." And there it is again, that same whisper, back in your ear. You open your eyes and step back. The pyramid looms silently, as always, but now you know what to look for. Not inscriptions, not treasure. Tuning. You tap your fingers gently against one of the casing stones. Not enough to make a sound, just enough to feel. A small tremor travels up your arm. It's not a monument. It's an instrument. And maybe, just maybe, it's waiting for someone to play it again. You don't speak. You barely breathe. There's a calmness now that you didn't notice before. It's not silence, it's resonance. The pyramid hums, not in sound, but in the way it aligns the night around you. The wind brushes your face at just the right speed. The moon hangs at just the right angle. And you, standing barefoot on sand, are tuned just right. You slowly stretch out your arms, and for a moment, you imagine them forming the final triangle, the one the pyramid lost when its capstone vanished. You complete the shape, and the number returns. You take a few steps backward, trying to shake off the trance. But your eyes are still sharp, scanning every angle of the structure. And then you remember, this number isn't locked to Egypt. It's not buried in stone. It's mobile. You're suddenly transported, not literally, but in thought. O Stonehenge. The placement of the stones. The arc of the circle. The spacing between uprights and lintels. Not exact, no, but familiar. Close. Resonant. And then to Angkor Wat. To the Mayan pyramids. To the 108 temples around Mount Meru. You start to sense a global blueprint. Like the earth itself was once wrapped in a net of numbers, a harmonic mesh, and only the builders knew how to read it. You recall a fringe theory too fringe to ever mention at dinner. It claims Earth once had a planetary tuning system, with structures built at key resonance points, not just for worship or burial but to maintain vibrational balance. You'd laughed at it once. You're not laughing now, because that number keeps echoing. You look down at your hands. 10 fingers, 10 digits, decimal counting system. But what if you were never meant to count in tens? What if 432 is the true cornerstone? You remember that time you fell asleep to an ambient playlist. Track 6 was tuned to 432 Hz, and you woke up refreshed in a way caffeine couldn't match. Coincidence? Maybe, but maybe not. The old man's voice returns, uninvited but welcome. They encoded the number in stone because stone doesn't lie. You didn't just hear that. You felt it. And that brings you to the fringe debate that even mainstream scholars quietly acknowledge over drinks. What if pyramids aren't isolated wonders? What if they're part of a grid? Some believe there's a global energy network, a ley line system that ancient structures tapped into, and the coordinates of the Great Pyramid perfectly aligned to true north, off by just 3 out of 60 ths of a degree, more accurate than the Greenwich Observatory. You shake your head. It can't all be accidental. You pull out your phone, not for math this time, for music. You scroll through until you find a simple, sustained note. Tundov Corsido, 432 Hz. You press play, and the sound bleeds into the night. You stare at the pyramid as the tone fills your ears, and then, impossibly, you feel a pull. Like the stone is listening. Like the missing capstone is reaching toward you from some alternate frequency. And here comes the weirdest moment of all. You hear your own heartbeat, syncing with the tone. Bottom, bottom, bottom. It slows. It softens. It tunes. You sit again. This time, not to decode, not to calculate, just to listen. Because now it makes sense. The pyramid wasn't meant to be solved. It was meant to be felt, to be entered. Not physically but mentally, emotionally, rhythmically. 432 isn't just a number, it's a permission slip. To remember, to realign, to tune in. And as the sound plays gently from your speaker and the sand settles back around your ankles, you close your eyes and smile. The pyramid hums quietly behind you, and you finally feel like you belong here. The tone from your speaker fades into the silence, and yet the feeling lingers like the echo of a dream that doesn't want to be forgotten. You open your eyes, and the world feels slightly shifted, like it's tuned differently. You rise to your feet again, slowly, like someone waking up in an unfamiliar time zone. Your body moves, but your mind is still partially inside that hum, still caught in the silent song of stone. You start walking again, not with a destination, but with momentum. The pyramid looms beside you like a quiet giant, content to watch your thoughts spiral. And then, something odd happens. You hear laughter. Not loud, not mocking, just light. You stop. You're alone. At least, you thought you were. Turning slowly, you scan the area. Just past the southeast corner, a silhouette emerges. Someone sitting cross-legged, head tilted toward the sky, laughing softly like the stars just told a joke only he could hear. He doesn't acknowledge you, not at first. Just sips from a metal cup and then, as if remembering you exist, waves you over. You hesitate, but let's be honest, you're too deep now to turn back. You sit a few meters away, just close enough to catch the scent of something sweet and strange, maybe cloves or sandalwood. The man looks like he belongs on a coin. Bronze skin, eyes older than the stone beside him. He's not a guide, not a local. He's something else. You heard it, didn't you? He asks. You don't answer out loud. Your nod is enough. He smiles. Most people don't. Not the first time. Not even the 10th. They look at the pyramid like it's a puzzle. But it's not. It's a mirror. It reflects what you bring to it. Numbers, frequencies, fears, desires. Everything. You feel something click. Like the stone is listening to this man too. He leans in slightly. But what you heard at 4:32, you not the only one. You blink. What do you mean? He shrugs, like it's obvious. That number is everywhere because it's built into us. It's your heartbeat at rest. It's the breath between thoughts. It's encoded in nature, tree growth, planetary orbits, even lightning. And then he grins. Ever heard of vibrational healing? You nod cautiously. Of course you have. You've scrolled past enough TikToks to get the gist, singing bowls, tuning forks, awkward men named Derek explaining quantum fields. Well, the man continues, those people, some of them are faking it. Some aren't. But the pyramid? It's the real deal. It doesn't try to heal. It just is. You ask him if he's a mystic, a scientist, a tourist. He laughs again. All of the above. None of the above. Labels are for cereal boxes, not consciousness. Okay then. He gestures toward the pyramid. Want to hear the wild part? You lean in. The same number 432 appears in ancient Vedic texts, Sumerian star charts, and in the architecture of Angkor Wat. Civilizations with no contact, no shared language, no social media, and yet, the same number. You finish. He nods. Historians still argue whether this global pattern is real or just modern projection. They call it apopheniath tendency to see meaning in random data. But there's something about this moment that doesn't feel random at all. He pulls something from his bag. A piece of folded paper, worn from touch. He opens it slowly and shows you a hand-drawn spiral. You recognize it instantly, the Fibonacci spiral. Golden ratio, you ask. He shakes his head. Golden rhythm. Then, he draws a triangle around the spiral. One that fits perfectly. Not a mathematical triangle. A musical one. 3 points. Frequency, form, and feeling. And in the center, you feel a strange tingling in your fingertips. A sudden awareness of your own pulse again. Not fast. Not slow. Just right. You look up at the pyramid. The stars have shifted slightly, and now Orion's belt seems to align with the southern edge. You remember how the pyramid's shafts are aimed at specific stars, Sirius, Orion, almost like antennas or guides. The man folds the paper again and slips it into your hand. You won't find this in a museum, he says, but you'll feel it everywhere. Then, as casually as if he were stepping into a cab, he stands, brushes off the sand, and walks toward the desert. No goodbye, no wink, just a fading presence. You stare at the spiral in your hand. 432 in the center. And somehow, it feels personal. The pyramid hums again. Soft this time. Not for you, but for itself. And that might be the most sacred part of all. You sit for a while, spiral paper crumpled gently in your hand, unsure what's real anymore. The man's presence still lingers like incense, and the pyramid seems quieter than before, not silent, but settled, like it just witnessed an exchange it's seen 100,000 times. And maybe it has, because you're starting to understand that this place, this exact structure, isn't unique in its shape. It's unique in its intention. You rise again and begin walking, this time toward the center of the Giza Plateau. The pyramid's shadow stretches beside you like a silent companion. Every few steps, your fingers twitch, as if unconsciously tracing numbers in the air. A gentle rhythm pulses under your skin. Then, without warning, your thoughts are pulled elsewhere across the globe. Stonehenge. Not pyramidal. Not even vaguely similar, right? Except, it's built in a circular harmonic ratio. The distances between stones reflect lunar cycles. And you remember reading somewhere that some of the tones generated by singing inside Stonehenge match the harmonic overtones of 432 Hz. You pause. You hum the tone again, quietly, and the desert listens. Historians still argue whether Stonehenge was a calendar, an observatory, or a sacred site, but you're beginning to suspect it may have been all three and something more. Maybe it was an amplifier, just like Giza, just like other sacred sites. There's a pattern forming, and it's not just mathematical, it's auditory. You remember a fringe claim you once scoffed at, that the builders of these monuments didn't just work with stone, they worked with sound. That they levitated blocks using vibration. That they used harmonics to melt or soften granite. That they tuned the planet. Insane? Maybe. But then again, so is hauling 70-ton stones across miles of desert without wheels. So is building a structure aligned more precisely to true north than your GPS. So is encoding universal constants in raw limestone. You walk slowly now, almost reverently. Not because you're scared, but because something is beginning to resonate. You stop at a small outcrop of rock, half buried in sand, and sit again. There's something primal about this frequency. You don't even need a speaker anymore. It's in your breath, in your thoughts. You've gone from hearing it to becoming it. Your thoughts drift to the ancient Chinese concept of Li, the natural, invisible order underlying all things. Patterns that govern growth, motion, decay. Some say Li appears in the curling of ferns, in river deltas, in the formation of galaxies, and maybe in pyramids. You wonder if the builders knew this pattern. Not intellectually, but intuitively. Not written, but felt. Like a composer who doesn't need sheet music to create harmony. You trace the spiral again on the back of your hand, finger dragging softly over skin. And there it is. The connection. Giza, Stonehenge, Angkor Wat, Teotihuacan, Göbekli Tepe. They don't share style. They don't share language. But they share frequency. You reach into your pocket and retrieve a smooth pebble, one you picked up hours ago, without thinking. You place it in the center of the spiral on the paper and watch how it fits perfectly, naturally, like a punctuation mark at the end of a cosmic sentence. You laugh softly to yourself. It's all too much, isn't it? You're just a person in the sand, chasing numbers like stars in a dream. And yet, the deeper you go, the more real it feels. You remember a line from an old movie. There's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. Well, you're walking it now. Your phone buzzes gently. A reminder you set long ago. Hydrate. Sleep soon. You ignore it. You're not ready yet. You hum again. Just once. And this time, the pyramid answers. Not in sound. In stillness. Perfect, profound, mathematical stillness. The kind that tells you you're not crazy. Not delusional. You're just finally hearing the music. You wake up in the same spot, though you don't remember falling asleep. The desert is darker now, quieter somehow, like even the insects have paused their routines to listen in. You sit up, feeling that dry ache behind your eyes that only comes from dreaming too deeply. And what a dream it was. You were floating, not flying, just suspended above a massive geometric grid. Not made of lines, but of sound. Each note, each tone, shaped a piece of terrain. A peak here, a river bend there. You saw mountains rising where bass lines dropped, valleys forming where the melody softened. And in the very center of it all, a pyramid. Of course, but not just Giza. Hundreds, thousands. Every continent, every age. All humming in sync. Each one tuned not to dominate, but to balance. You rise slowly and dust yourself off, glancing toward the pyramid like you might catch it blinking. It stands still, ever patient, as if amused by your awe. You're not sure what time it is, but time feels irrelevant now. It stretches and bends around the pyramid like light around a black hole. You begin to circle the base again, following the line of the lowest course of stone. There's something meditative in the walk. With each step, the sand shifts, but the pyramid never does. It remains the constant. The anchor. Your thoughts drift this time toward Atlantis. Oh yes, that old chestnut. Historians scoff. Philosophers shrug. Conspiracy theorists light up like Christmas trees. But you're not here to prove anything. You're just noticing patterns. And the myth of Atlantis? It always starts with a perfect society, governed by harmony and sacred geometry. And always ends in ruin, swallowed by the sea after they fall out of tune. It's oddly musical, isn't it? You recall Plato's mention of Atlantis temples, massive structures plated in orichalcum, echoing with the sounds of rituals and resonance. The central temple aligned to celestial bodies, the layout of the city forming concentric rings, circles, spirals, frequencies. You hum again, no longer needing the number to find the pitch. It's in your chest now, like a tuning fork buried beneath your ribs. And that's when it dawns on you. Maybe the pyramids aren't Atlantean. Maybe they're the result of what Atlantis knew. The blueprint preserved, not lost. The knowledge scattered, but encoded in stone so the next civilization could rediscover it when they were ready. And are we? You kneel at the southern base now, tracing your finger along the seam where two stones meet. It's flawless. No mortar, just contact, as if two thoughts were placed side by side with perfect understanding. And you feel a swell of appreciation for the minds that built this. Not just for the engineering, but for the restraint. The decision not to explain, to let the math speak for itself. It's like finding a message in a bottle, but the message is just a single number. 432. You smile, because you know now that it doesn't have to be exact to be true. The message isn't about decimal points. It's about intention, a harmonic that echoes across space and time, a key that fits doors in every era. You pause as the wind stirs, lifting a small cloud of sand that dances briefly, then vanishes. And for the briefest moment, you hear it again just under the surface of the wind. That low hum, that soft song, that ancient permission to remember who we were, to remember what we knew, and to wonder not whether we lost it but whether we buried it on purpose. The wind dies again, and with it, your breath. For a moment, everything holds. The sand doesn't shift. The stars don't twinkle. Even your thoughts pause, hovering somewhere between the last whisper of the pyramid and the next question your mind dares to ask. You close your eyes, and suddenly, you're inside. Not literally, but deep in the idea of it. You descend through a passage in your imagination, one that tour guides don't mention, one that spirals down into the sarcophagus of silence. This chamber is dark, not just the absence of light, but the kind of darkness that absorbs. A place where sound is not heard but felt, like a distant vibration in your sternum. You imagine smooth granite walls pressing gently on every thought, reshaping them into stillness. And there, in the center, lies the sarcophagus. But it's not a coffin. It's a resonant chamber. You approach slowly. Your fingers tremble slightly as they touch the edge. It's colder than expected. The stone hums softly beneath your skin again, not audibly, but in that strange, cellular way. This is where most stories end, right? With a pharaoh entombed in golden splendor. But you feel no death here. No decay. Just density. You lean over and peer inside. No bones. No treasure. Instead, etched into the base, barely visible, without the angle of your imagination's light, is a sequence. Not numbers, not letters, waves, carved into the stone like frozen sound. They curve and dip in precise patterns, peaks and valleys that match the vibrational patterns of 432 Hz when seen on a Chladni plate. You've seen it before: sand dancing on a vibrating surface, forming geometric shapes in perfect symmetry. It's mesmerizing. It's music made visible. And somehow, it's here, inside a stone box thousands of years old. Historians still argue whether the sarcophagus was symbolic or functional. Some say it was a resonance chamber designed to attune the body to the afterlife. Others claim it was never meant for a body at all but for sound. For frequency calibration, you stand upright and let the idea settle. Maybe the pharaohs weren't entombed. Maybe they were tuned, like instruments, prepped to resonate beyond death, to transcend decay and hum eternally with the pulse of the cosmos. And what if that's what we're missing? We've buried our dead, preserved them in sterile silence. But these ancients, maybe they believed the soul didn't leave in silence. It left singing. You sit at the chamber's edge now, both mentally and metaphorically. Your legs dangle in a place where death and vibration meet. You hum agon instinctively and imagine the sound curling through the stone, bouncing off the walls, fractaling through time. And then your thoughts do something strange. They skip forward. Not to another temple, not another number, but to your own heartbeat. You press your hand to your chest. Thump, thump, still slow, still soft. And for the first time tonight, you begin to suspect that the human body itself might be a kind of pyramid. Think about it. Triangular structure of the torso, the spinal column as a central axis, the skull as the capstone. Even the chakras, if you go that route, align vertically like energy chambers in a stone structure. Root to crown, base to tip. And what sits in your chest? A resonator. A biological sarcophagus humming away day and night, issuing its own signature frequency. And you wonder if 432 Hz aligns with natural patterns. Could your heartbeat, too, be a key? Could your entire body be tuned? You lie down now, still mentally, still in this imagined chamber, and you feel the resonance settle into your bones. The ground beneath you vibrates, not from sound, but from recognition. This place, whether real or dream, knows you. It welcomes you like an old note returning to a long-forgotten song. And as your mind ascends back toward the surface, the pyramid waiting above, you realize the sarcophagus isn't empty. It's full of answers, but they don't speak in words. They hum. You take one last step away from the shadow of the pyramid and pause, not out of exhaustion, but reverence. Something inside you feels full, not like a belly after dinner, but like a glass filled exactly to the rim. Any more, and it would spill. Any less, and it wouldn't be complete. Your breath feels deeper, slower, calibrated, and your pulse, still in that strange, steady rhythm, like it's harmonizing with something too large to name. You sit on a low ridge of crumbled stone, knees tucked up, arms resting gently, the paper spiral from before still folded in your palm. You run your thumb across it absent-mindedly, feeling every crease like braille for the soul. And that's when the thought creeps in. What if the number isn't just in the pyramid? What if it's in you? You glance around at the stone, the sand, the stretch of the night sky. And for the first time tonight, you feel the full weight of what it means to be alive inside a resonant system. You hum again, this time without doubt. It comes out low, full, almost involuntary. And you feel your chest vibrate, your ribs catch the wave, your skull ring ever so slightly. 432 Hz, again. Not because you're trying, because you're in tune. And then your brain does that thing it does, starts looking for patterns, confirmations, stories. You think of temple architecture. You think of cathedrals where certain chants echo so perfectly that a single note feels infinite. You think of monks chanting the Om sound said to contain the frequency of the universe. Some say that sound rings around 432 Hz, too. Coincidence? Maybe. but it's beginning to feel like nothing about tonight is accidental. You remember reading once that your heartbeat slows naturally in the presence of resonant frequencies if your body recognizes home when it hears it. You count your pulse again. It's slower. It's steadier. It's balanced. And suddenly, you're not just thinking about pyramids or temples. You're thinking about you, your own design, your own structure, your own ratios. Head, chest, pelvis, the three pyramids of the human form. Spine rising like a central axis. Lungs vibrating with breath. Blood pulsing like a tide. Historians still argue whether the Great Pyramid was a tomb or a monument, a clock or a compass. But no one can argue how you feel right now, centered. It's like walking into a room where the light, the sound, the scent, the air pressure, everything just fits. You're not overwhelmed. You're aligned. You stretch your legs and feel the sand shift beneath your heels. The night is still so vast, and the pyramid so impossibly still. And yet, you feel seen. Not by eyes, by resonance. You glance at your phone again, not to check the time, but to remember what time even is. A measure of cycles, a rhythm, a number repeated until it becomes experience. And maybe that's the whole secret. Maybe 432 is less about frequency and more about timing. Knowing when to listen. Knowing when to return to silence. Knowing when to recognize that the most ancient code of all isn't hidden in stone or stars but in your own stillness. You close your eyes. Let the number dissolve. Not to hold it, but to let it hum through you. The desert shifts slightly. The wind picks up again. And the pyramid done moving, unchanging, watches like a lighthouse made of time. You inhale, slow and long. And for the first time tonight, you don't feel like you're standing beneath the pyramid. You feel like you've become it. You walk the perimeter now, not like an explorer or a skeptic, but like someone walking a labyrinth, calm, centered, aware of each footstep. You don't need answers. You're not chasing revelations anymore. You're just letting the rhythm carry you. Left, right. Sand shifts. Wind brushes past your ears. The pyramid beside you doesn't change. But you do. Each stone block seems less like an object and more like a beat in a measure. Each face of the pyramid a chord. Each alignment a verse in an impossible song built not from instruments, but from intention. You remember that strange phrase from earlier, Pharaoh's Fitbit. It makes you laugh now, not because it's absurd, but because it's probably closer to the truth than most textbooks. What if the pyramid was a kind of health monitor? A regulator? A healer? You think about the dimensions of the king's chamber again. How it was carved entirely from granitious stone that responds to pressure with tiny electrical charges. Piezoelectricity. Like bone. Like quartz. Like the planet itself. And you wonder what happens when a body, vibrating in its natural state, lies in that chamber? What happens when you hum, even softly, at 432 hertz in that space? You've read stories, some fringe, some quietly passed around by more serious voice-soft people experiencing strange phenomena in the king's chamber. Echoes that don't behave like echoes. Vibrations that seem to bounce inward instead of out. Moments of euphoria. Historians still debate whether this was intended or just architectural luck. But your gut says, intentional. Because why else would every dimension, every angle, every placement fit so unnaturally well with natural frequencies? You pause your steps and stand completely still. Then breathe. You match the inhale to the number. For seconds in. 3 seconds hold. 2 seconds out. You fudge the math a bit, but close enough. And just like that, your breath becomes a mantra. You remember an article about how modern hospitals are experimenting with sound therapy. That certain tones improve circulation, reduce anxiety, even regulate heart rate. You think of your own body now calm, still, quieter than it's been in weeks. Maybe you are the experiment. And this place? The control group. You sit again, legs stretched this time, hands behind you, palms pressed into the sand. The pyramid looms to your left, its slope catching starlight, breaking it into gentle silver fragments. You imagine ancient Egyptians walking this same path, not in fear or reverence, but in routine, tuning themselves, aligning before a harvest, settling their minds after grief, using the pyramid not as a shrine, but as a tuning fork for the soul. You start to see it now, the temple layout, the body's architecture, the tuning of breath. They're not separate. They're all riffs on the same song. Different octaves, different keys, but the same melody. You tap your chest lightly. Once, twice, still in sync. And then the number appears again. It's no longer just a tone to you. It's become a language. Not the kind you write. Not even the kind you speak. But the kind you feel in your bones when a room goes quiet. When a sound hits just right. When someone you love says nothing and you hear everything. You stretch your arms behind your head and lie down. The sand embraces you. The stars don't judge you. And the pyramid? It hums without needing to prove anything. You smile. Because now, finally, neither do you. Lying in the sand, you stare up at the night sky like it's the dome of an ancient cathedral. But instead of painted saints and halos, it's Orion's belt Sirius Vega stars flickering not with answers, but with rhythm. And now, you hear it again, not a hum, not a whisper this time, it's a pattern. A heartbeat, a cosmic metronome, ticking softly through your spine, syncing with your breath. You can't tell if it's coming from the pyramid or from within you. Maybe both. You close your eyes and see shapes. Hexagons, spirals, golden ratios. The kind of things that make mathematicians giddy and philosophers stare too long into teacups. But you're not trying to solve them now. You're feeling them like your body is tracing lines it already knows. And this spiral keeps showing up. On your paper, in your thoughts, in your fingertips. You sit up and dust off your jeans, now crusted in layers of millennia. Around you, silence holds the same reverence as a sacred chant. No tourists, no buses, no Wi-Fi, just geometry and moonlight. You begin sketching in the sand with your finger. A spiral, wide and slow. A Fibonacci curve that loops outward in graceful arcs. It feels like drawing gravity. And when you reach the center, you press your palm there. The contact is light, but your body registers it like an anchor. That's when you remember something strange from a book you once skimmed in a dusty bookshop in a mountain town. That the golden spiral is how energy likes to move when it's not being interrupted. Water spirals as it drains. Galaxies spiral in their spin. DNA coils in double helices. Even your own fingerprint is a quiet, looping record of your unique frequency. And again, that number pulses behind it all. 432. You say it out loud this time. No irony. No sarcasm. Just reverence. It echoes gently off the slope of the pyramid, like a stone giant clearing its throat. Historians still argue whether sacred geometry was mystical art or just ancient math. Some claim these patterns were only aesthetic. Others believe they were functional, that they optimized energy flow, acoustics, even healing. You look back at your spiral in the sand. It's crude, but right. It looks like what this whole night has felt like, an inward journey that somehow spiraled outward to touch the stars. And you realize something. This pattern, it's everywhere. In nautilus shells, in sunflower seeds, in hurricanes. And now, it's here, in the sand beneath your hand. You suddenly remember how people talk about sacred architecture inducing altered states, of seeing visions, of unlocking hidden memories, of tuning into frequencies beyond conscious awareness. You wonder now, maybe it's not about unlocking anything. Maybe it's about remembering. You draw a second spiral next to the first, slightly offset, and feel a strange joy rise in your chest. The act feels ancient, like something your ancestors did with sticks and bone tools, long before books or screens or theories. And maybe they weren't drawing for art. Maybe they were drawing to tune. You lie back again. The sand embraces your spiral like a soft bed. Above you, the constellations wheel silently on their infinite circuit. And for a moment, just when you feel them, not as stories, not as lights, but as frequencies. Each star emitting not just heat and photons, but tone. The entire sky becomes a silent orchestra, one you're finally hearing with something deeper than ears. You close your eyes and see the pyramid, not as a structure, but as a vibration. A wave frozen into stone. A still frequency. A geometric chant made of mass instead of sound. And then you hear your own voice inside your head, whispering what you've known all along. You are part of this song. The wind brushes over you again, like a hand smoothing the blanket of sand at your back. You sit up slowly. The stars haven't moved, but you feel like you've shifted several constellations inward. You glance around, half expecting the man from earlier to return, maybe with more paper spirals and riddles. But he's gone. Maybe he was never there. Or maybe he's everywhere now, just another whisper in this long, low-frequency lullaby of stone and stars. You look at the pyramid again, this time not as an outsider, but as a listener. It's not a thing. It's a signal. And once you're tuned to it, you start hearing the noise around it, too. You hear the voices of scholars, buried somewhere between textbooks and podcasts. Some say it's all a beautiful coincidence. That the alignment, the angles, the number 432, it's projection. Wishful thinking. Pattern-seeking brains doing what they do best. Others claim it's a deliberate legacy. A harmonic breadcrumb trail left for future civilizations to follow, not to decode history, but to heal themselves. And somewhere in the middle, you imagine a group of exhausted researchers sitting under a papyrus umbrella, bickering over coffee, debating whether pi was encoded intentionally or if someone simply liked the way triangles looked. Historians still argue whether these numbers meant anything at all. But here's what they don't account for. You feel it, and you can't unfeel it. That subtle shift in your breathing. The way your thoughts don't spiral anymore, but loop gently like an orbit. You've become a kind of resonant antenna, not just receiving this ancient broadcast, but amplifying it. You rise and begin walking again, slow and soft-footed. You pass the stone spiral you drew in the sand. Still intact, still whispering. You remember a quote someone once said, "Mathematics is the language of God." You used to roll your eyes at that. Now you're not so sure. Because if there is a divine language, it probably doesn't use nouns or verbs. It probably uses patterns, shapes, frequencies, silence. You reach the far edge of the plateau, where the sand stretches away toward the horizon like a sleeping sea. The pyramid sits behind you now, a silent monolith, but you feel its presence in your spine. It doesn't need to loom to be powerful. It just is. You pause and look at your own shadow stretching across the sand. Tall, sharp, still vibrating slightly. And then you laugh. Because here's the joke no one tells you in all the documentaries and conspiracy threads. It's not the pyramid that holds the secret. It's you. You're the missing capstone. You're the final angle. You're the one who hums back. You breathe again, softer now. The number 432 isn't a code to crack. It's a key to tune you to your own harmony. And now that you've heard it, you'll never walk quite the same again. Every stone path will feel like rhythm. Every echo will sound like memory. And every still night will hum just beneath your thoughts. A quiet reminder that the song is still playing. You walk without needing to know where you're going. The sand has become your metronome, crunching softly beneath each step. The night has that perfect chill now, the kind that makes you feel both incredibly small and somehow infinite. The pyramid behind you doesn't need to follow. It's already in your bones. Your mind drifts again faster this time, like a song that's picked up tempo. You think of the other pyramids you've only seen in documentaries and half-read articles. The ones in Mexico, Peru, Sudan, Indonesia. Some buried in jungle, some carved from step, some underwater. Different cultures, different times, different gods. Same shape, same basic blueprint. Triangle, base, point, precision. And the numbers? Still there. You remember an old Reddit thread, the kind you usually dismiss after 5 seconds. But this one stuck with you. Someone claimed that if you chart the coordinates of these ancient structures, some of them fall on a global grid. A geometric pattern that wraps the Earth like a cosmic net. A harmonic scaffolding. You scoffed back then. But now you hum and hear the wind answer. You realize you're thinking in ratios now. Every structure, every distance, every breath you measuring it all subconsciously, looking for the underlying pattern, the code, the rhythm, not to solve anything, but to feel in tune. You pause and glance back toward the pyramid. Even in the distance, it's undeniably precise. Even in shadow, its geometry is unmistakable. So grounded, so heavy, and yet more alive than most people you know. And here's the part that gives you chills. You remember reading that the Great Pyramid's height, 146.6 meters, and perimeter, 921.6 meters, form a scaled ratio of the Earth itself. That if you multiply the height by 43,200, you get the polar radius of the Earth. If you multiply the base perimeter by 43,200, you get the Earth's equatorial circumference. 43,200. The same number that keeps following you around like a melody you can't forget. Historians still argue whether that was intentional. Could they really have measured the Earth that precisely? Without satellites? Without GPS? But maybe they didn't need technology. Maybe they had resonance. You stop walking. Just stand. And listen. The silence is full now. Not empty, but dense. Thick with memory. Charged with potential. Like something just passed through and left the door open. You take a deep breath. And wonder, what if all these monuments, these global pyramids aren't separate structures? What if they're notes? And the Earth is the instrument? Maybe ancient civilizations weren't building landmarks. Maybe they were building a symphony. You look up again, toward the sky. Stars blink back like old friends. The moon has shifted. Orion has marched on. But you remain grounded, feet planted, heart quiet. You hum one last time. Not to test a theory. Not to summon a feeling. Just because it feels good. And for a split second shorter than a blink you feel everything pause. Not stop. Just sink. Your breath. Your bones. The stars. The pyramid behind you. The ground beneath you. The number 432 doesn't echo now. It rests. Like a final chord played at just the right moment. Not to end the song, but to let it linger. Section 15. You take one final step away from the Giza Plateau, and it doesn't feel like leaving. It feels like finishing a sentence. Like a musical note held just long enough, then released into silence. Your footprints behind you don't feel like marks in sand. They feel like echoes, like the last few beats of a drum fading into memory. You don't look back this time. You don't need to. The pyramid has already followed you. Or rather, it's inside you now, slotted between rib and lung, humming low and quiet like a secret you're finally ready to carry. As you walk toward the edge of the site, the first signs of morning nudge the sky. Not sunrise, just that soft, sleepy shift where black turns to indigo and indigo to navy. The stars start to blink out, embarrassed to be caught still awake. The hum that's been with you all night grows faint, not because it's gone, but because you're finally in harmony with it. You press your fingers together gently, noticing your own pulse again. Still steady. You feel like you've changed. Not dramatically. Not obviously. You're still you. But something has been retuned and historians will keep arguing. You'll read new theories tomorrow, some more outlandish than others. Someone will say the pyramid is a power plant. Another will claim it's a stargate. Someone will insist it's just a tomb and nothing more. But you'll smile quietly, because the pyramid already gave you what it was meant to give. Not proof, not certainty, but resonance. You walk now with a rhythm you didn't know you needed. A little slower, a little softer, like someone who's heard the song behind the noise. You pause once, just before leaving the plateau entirely. The wind picks up again and kicks a swirl of dust around your ankles. You hum again, softer than ever. Just once. The wind carries it. You listen. Nothing happens. And yet everything happens. Because from now on, every time you breathe, every time you pause, every time you feel even slightly off-center, you'll remember this moment. And you'll hum. Just once. And you'll come back into tune. You take one final step away from the Giza Plateau, and it doesn't feel like leaving. It feels like finishing a sentence. Like a musical note held just long enough, then released into silence. Your footprints behind you don't feel like marks in sand. They feel like echoes, like the last few beats of a drum fading into memory. You don't look back this time. You don't need to. The pyramid has already followed you. Or rather, it's inside you now, slotted between rib and lung, humming low and quiet like a secret you're finally ready to carry. As you walk toward the edge of the site, the first signs of morning nudge the sky. Not sunrise, just that soft, sleepy shift where black turns to indigo and indigo to navy. The stars start to blink out, embarrassed to be caught still awake. The hum that's been with you all night grows faint, not because it's gone, but because you're finally in harmony with it. You press your fingers together gently, noticing your own pulse again. Still steady. You feel like you've changed. Not dramatically, not obviously. You're still you. But something has been retuned and historians will keep arguing. You'll read new theories tomorrow, some more outlandish than others. Someone will say the pyramid is a power plant. Another will claim it's a stargate. Someone will insist it's just a tomb and nothing more. But you'll smile quietly, because the pyramid already gave you what it was meant to give. Not proof, not certainty, but resonance. You walk now with a rhythm you didn't know you needed. A little slower, a little softer, like someone who's heard the song behind the noise. You pause once, just before leaving the plateau entirely. The wind picks up again and kicks a swirl of dust around your ankles. You hum again, softer than ever. Just once. The wind carries it. You listen. Nothing happens. And yet everything happens. Because from now on, every time you breathe, every time you pause, every time you feel even slightly off-center, you'll remember this moment. And you'll hum. Just once. And you'll come back into tune. Word count, 1071. 300 word wind down. Now just rest. No more numbers. No more patterns. Just this, your breath, rising and falling like the soft arc of a desert dune. Let the imagery blur. Let the pyramid dissolve back into shadow, like it was never stone, only memory. A long, patient rhythm that found its way to you in the stillness. Your heartbeat slows. Your muscles soften. The desert wind that once whispered equations now hushes into a lullaby. There's no urgency anymore. No mystery to solve. Just the deep knowing that everything is exactly as it should be. Inhale gently and let it go. Let your mind drift back through the night, the soft steps, the spirals in the sand, the notes you hummed, and the stillness that followed. There's nothing to do now, nothing to remember. The resonance will wait. It always does. The pyramid, wherever it lives, in Egypt, in your mind, or somewhere between his content. You've heard the hum. You've answered it. And now it lets you go. Let the images fade like stars at dawn. Let your body sink. Let sleep gather like mist around your edges. You are tuned. You are aligned. And the world will keep humming, even when you dream.